real, chill conversation. We're going to discuss today and talk about mental health, mental awareness, depression. Um, Lately, I've been seeing on TikTok videos of people that are going through depression and going through mental health, and they have their breakdowns on TikTok, and they feel like they can't express themselves to anyone. So they go on TikTok or YouTube to express themselves. So, Brenna, tonight I just wanted to talk about and to discuss, like, how do you feel about, mental illness, um, and about how can people can express their feelings if they feel like they have like a mental illness, or they're going through depression, or they're going through something in their life that they feel like they can't talk about.
I think this topic is definitely one that we need to have a lot more frequent conversations about. We're starting to see celebrities be more vocal and be more transparent about their struggles with mental illness, whether it's something that they're experiencing directly themselves, whether it be anxiety or depression or bipolar disorder, um, and several other mental illnesses that are in existence and that people have to cope with and deal with every day. There's celebrities that have come out and have talked about it, and they release these messages that we need to drop the stigma, and that's something that I definitely think that we need to do, but it goes hand in hand with we've had a previous episode where we talked about generational curses, and especially in the Black community, it's frowned upon to admit, to be transparent, to be forthcoming that you're struggling with some type of mental illness. If you're struggling with depression, it's get out of it, snap out of it, pull yourself together, be strong, be the strong Black woman, be the strong Black man. And it's unfair because then you're left with, how do I cope with this? How do I deal with this? And then a lot of the ways that are chosen to deal with it, they're not through healthy things that ultimately wind up hurting you instead of helping you because you're seeking out assistance on your own accord. When you turn to the availabilities of therapy and going to doctors, psychiatrists, or psychologists, or licensed counselors, or social workers, or what have you, and start the talk therapy and start working through some of the issues that have gotten you to the point of which you are suffering from your mental illness. The more people that are vocal about that and participating in therapy and participating in raising their hands and saying, hey, I struggle with anxiety. Hey, I'm struggling with depression. Even if it means that your family is standing at you, looking at you, shaking their heads, like, why would you come out and say that? That's like, we don't talk about our business. We don't talk about our problems. We need to break that curse. We need to break that stigma, and we need to talk about it. We need to accept it. We need to embrace those that are reaching out for help. And a lot of those ways are being expressive through social media, which has just been booming over the last couple of years. Many, many people have been using these platforms as a measure of which to express themselves, to get support, to feel like there's some type of community that's understanding and willing to help them.
That is so true, Brenna. And I totally agree with you about the Black community. I was raised in that generation where we don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about what's going on in our household because it's frowned upon or make us look bad. And I think that's why most families, children was being abused and nobody was talking about it because of
What's
mental
up, Wes?
illness. Hey, Natalie, how are you?
Hey,
Hey, Nat.
ladies. Hey.
Um, they didn't talk about it because of mental illness. A lot of parents, grandparents have had mental illness and um, never got it checked, never even knew they had it. And so it was basically passed down. And once again, that's what I'm saying. A lot of kids got abused uh, because of their parents having a mental illness. I also agree with you, Brenda, about breaking that generational curse. We have to speak up. We have to speak out. We can't be afraid. Because when you hold all that in, you're just going to explode. Um, and we have to feel comfortable expressing ourselves without feeling like somebody's going to judge us. And I think that's how it is in the Black community. You feel like somebody's going to judge you if you say, I need help. We all need help. Um, but it's sad that the generation that we lived in, we could not speak up. But I am glad to see now how on social media people are speaking up about mental illness.
Yeah, the fear of judgment is one that is a driving factor for so many people, and it takes a certain amount of growth and maturity and understanding about yourself to realize and to recognize that you need to make the life decisions for you and for yourself and for you to be giving yourself the best life that you can give it regardless of the ramifications and the judgments that come along with it. And that's difficult for a lot of people to do. A lot of people, especially from large families, and again, we're pointing back to our Black community. If you come out and talk about the fact that you've been battling depression since you were, a teenager or all throughout college or what have you, and then you call out, another family member because you recognize similar symptoms that that family member may have had, and you maybe make a suggestion that maybe they should get some help or counseling or to try to deal with it. It's like a how dare you? Just because you have that problem and you're crazy doesn't mean that I have that problem and I'm crazy. And that's
Exactly.
one word that I really it makes me cringe, when people describe people with mental illness as being crazy. It's, oh, you're crazy. Oh, it's all in your mind. And they get very dismissive along with judgmental. And then that's what causes people to retreat and then to decide to not seek the help and to not seek the assistance that they so desperately need because of that fear of rejection by their family, by their peers, by society and in a whole. Nobody wants to be rejected and nobody wants to be judged, but you have to be able to step outside of that and look at what you need for yourself. And if you need to move forward and you need help and you need to go to therapy, then you get help and you go to therapy. If you got to get on medication to manage your illness, then you get on medication and you manage your illness. We have to remove the stigma of mental illness and seeking the proper treatment for it. We have to take care of ourselves. It's part of self-care, and that's something that we're so adamant about, but you can't leave out the mental health aspect of it. We eat right, we're going to the gym, we're getting our exercise in and everything else. We got to take care of the mental health as well, not just the physical.
Ain't that the truth? Somebody asked me yesterday, I was taken aback. They were like, oh, do you know any therapists? And I was just like, I was in a group of friends. We were out having a drink. And they just randomly asked me, but I was like, what? I was like, okay, that was random. But I'm like, yeah, I definitely know at Georgia State University, they offer counselors and mentors and different therapists you can talk to. And you don't have to be a student at Georgia State or you don't have to be alumni of Georgia State University to call and set something up. So I referred them there because that's really one of the only outlets I know. Like personally, I know people that are actual mentors there in that program. So I referred them to them. I was like, well, that's great that you're even asking, because I mean, that's a big step, is saying, you have a problem. The next step is saying you actually want to go talk to somebody about it. So whether it's big or small, I mean, you should definitely take the opportunities and use the resources that you can find to go and speak with somebody, whether, like I said, it's something serious or whether it's something, not so serious. If it's serious enough to you, then that's all that should matter there.
Exactly. And
And
that's a
that's,
great resource,
it
to,
is.
to have. But thank you for sharing that, because I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of people don't necessarily know where to start.
Yeah.
A lot of companies have employee assistance programs where there's an 800 number that you can call and they can start pointing you in the right directions of things. With your insurance company, I think you can look up psychiatrists and, psychotherapists and therapists and counselors. But there's, lots of, even on social media, I'm seeing lots of Instagram pages of therapy networks and, networks of, resources that you can utilize for whatever the issue is, at least to get yourself a consultation and point you in the direction that you need to be in based on, what you're experiencing, whatever the issue is, if it's a big problem, if it's a small problem. Sometimes people have, an acute onset of something that, they may be depressed, from a short-term change in circumstances. I'm pretty sure the majority of folks, experienced some level of depression when this pandemic first hit, and we didn't know what was going on and what was what, and whether you really realized it or not. I mean, it was a complete change to your routine, and, the thought of unknown. How am I going to, make my rent, pay my bills, and do all my things. And, so you have things that are short term and temporary, and then you have things that are long term and they're ongoing. And there's treatment, there's treatment for both. And not everything requires you to be, placed on medication. I mean, there's a lot of, talk therapy and then, group therapy, environments that also work as well, because you're in a group amongst people that may have different backgrounds and maybe different circumstances, but they're experiencing similar symptoms and a similar problem as to what you're experiencing. So it's on a, on a peer level, you're getting support, in that regard. And I think that's important too.
Yes, that is. And I'm going to piggyback on what Natalie said earlier about her friend. It's good that you gave her the information to find a counselor, Natalie, as well as not judge her. Because when somebody comes to you and asks for advice or say, hey, I need a therapist, I need a counselor, 95% of the time, a person is going to be like, well, what's wrong with you? And you're like, nothing. I just need to talk, or I need to get something
Right.
off my chest. And
Exactly.
then from there it goes down. It's like, man, what is wrong with me? Maybe I shouldn't talk to nobody. And then you hold back and you keep those feelings inside. And then that's how it starts to build up, because you feel like, okay, something is wrong with me. I don't want to express my feelings to nobody. And then it goes from me not expressing myself to me like, okay, you know what? This is too much. I'm
Yeah.
going through a lot. And that's how a lot of people, honestly, they commit suicide, because somebody said, well, what's wrong with you?
Mm.
Why do you need a
And
therapist?
I didn't even ask. I didn't even ask. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, if you want to talk
yeah,
to someone, you want to talk to them. You didn't
exactly.
say, hey, can you got a minute? And you didn't come to me saying, hey, I want to talk to you. So I'm not about to turn into the counselor there. I'm not a
Yeah,
professional. If they say they want to talk
no.
to somebody, let them talk to a professional, because we could give all the advice in the world, but at the end of the
Hmm.
day, whether they take it or not, they might not really, they might just be listening, but they're not really hearing you.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and it's good to talk to somebody that you don't know, because I notice
Mm-hmm.
when I talk to my counselor, because yes, I'm in counseling, is I can talk to her freely with no
Yes.
problem. And
Right.
I don't feel like I have to tiptoe about what I'm saying or have to watch what I'm saying, because I'm not offending her. She doesn't know my background. She don't know where I come from. I'm just having a full conversation with her. And it could be a day about just about my kids, or it could be a day just about me, or a day about just life, or a day about my future. And I
And
love
you're
it.
you're free from any
And
type
I'm
of
free from exactly,
from any type of judgment or
exactly,
any type of preconceived, like, oh well, what's wrong with her? I mean,
exactly,
if she's feeling like this and this is how she's feeling and she's talking
exactly.
about her kids today and da 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 da, you don't
Hmm.
want that to be to be the
Yeah.
reason. And when someone comes to you and asks you, hey, do you know of anybody that does this? I mean, I just think that that's such a huge step, like you were saying, Natalie. I mean, that's a huge step for someone to even take it to that point of asking for the resources. If you know of any, are they available? And if so, could you forward them to me? And it's an absolute great response to not be like, well, what's going on? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's your problem? I mean, if they want to let you know what it is that they're experiencing and why they want to talk to someone, then I think that's on the individual person. But I don't think it should be a requirement. And of course, we should always remain judgment free when someone comes to us and says, hey, I don't know if you know of any counselors or therapists or whatever, but I'd like to have a conversation with somebody. It's like, up, here you go. Up. If you don't have insurance, you can this up. You don't even have to be a student. You can contact Georgia State. They've got resources available that should point you in the right direction. Boom, and then it's a done deal. I'm not
Right.
sitting here trying to figure out, well, what's going on with her and like what's the situation and what happened and all of that. I mean, that's not my business.
And
And
I don't think the therapist, I don't think they pry too hard either. It just comes up in conversation. Like if that's what you want to talk about, that's what you want to talk about. If you just want to talk
Exactly.
about, like you said, Edwina, your future in general, business,
Yes.
kids or work, how that's going today. It's not like every day with the therapist has to be like, you just harping on things and just venting. Like if you don't want to talk about it that day, then okay. I don't think their therapists are there to just say, well, let's get down to the root of the problem, like right off the bat. They let you get comfortable. They let you, just bring it
And
up
that's
in
so
conversation.
that's so true, Natalie, what you're
Mhm.
saying. And I want us to break that stereotype that we go to counseling because somebody is crazy. Um, and that's what my counselor told me, because I was like, man, people may think I'm crazy coming here. She's like, no, people come here for divorces. People come to counseling if you're in bad health. People come here if you're having issues being a parent. And I was like, oh, yeah, that is true. And she was like, yeah, counseling's
yeah,
for everything. She says people come to counseling for marriages. And I was like, okay. And she was like, yeah. She was like, I'm just here to be an extra ear for you and to make you
yep,
feel comfortable. And
yep,
that's what we need to break. We need to break that cycle that, oh my God, you're going to counselor because something's wrong. No, I'm going to counselor because I need an extra ear. And especially in the Black community, we need to make it known, break the
yeah,
stereotype. I feel like for Black men, they have it harder because they hold so much in because they're taught as a young age to suck it up, shut up, and be a man. And
right.
it shouldn't be that way. You know, um, as we cry, grown men should cry too to express themselves. That's how I feel. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Because
Hmm.
when they hold that in as a man, it's going to have to come out. It's going to have to be released. You see what I
And
mean?
it comes out in anger,
Exactly. Or it may
Mhm.
come out as
sadness.
lashed out at their kids or at
Yeah,
their wives. And they
yep.
mean not to do it. Some men, they hold anger in from their childhood that they go look for love in other places, even though they have love right at home. You see, because
Hmm.
they're trying to fill that void, of
Right.
stuff that has happened from their childhood or their past. And they're not getting the right help and the right treatment and the right counseling. You see?
I think too the experience, with your therapy and with your counseling, it also is driven by you. It's not like you go to a physical doctor and the doctor's like, okay, well, your blood work shows this, and this, and we need to treat this and this and this. So here's prescriptions for these three medications. Therapy and counseling doesn't work that way. They ask you, what brings you here today? What are you hoping to accomplish? What are your goals? So if you are saying, hey, I want to get back to why I've been anxious since I was 5 years old, then you'll work on that together with your counselor, with your therapist, to get to the root of that issue. If you want to have a better understanding why you can't get out of this funk since you lost your job and haven't been able to find something that's fulfilling, then they'll help you get through that. If you're going through a grieving process, whether it's an actual death of someone passing away, or the ending of a relationship, or the ending of a marriage, a divorce, something like that, I mean, they'll help you get through that as well. So it's a lot more, I think, tailored to someone actually listening to what you're saying, and you really driving the dynamic of the relationship, instead of it being, where it's the doctor, the physical doctor, that examines you and looks at numbers on a lab sheet and says, okay, well, your blood is saying that you need this, your body's deficient in this, so we've got to give you this medication. With counseling and therapy, it's much more talk driven, and it really allows you to help you to come to realizations about certain situations on your own accord, which I think people would find extremely helpful when they go through that process.
Yeah, that is very it can get deep, because it's like, I lost my train of thought there. But it could get really deep. I mean, when it comes to relationships, like in the past, I never thought to say, oh, let me go talk to somebody, after this happened. I just talk to my friends and family, and all the time, they don't always have the best advice. Of course, they're going to just be on my side and just tell me, yeah, well, they were wrong. They were wrong. They were wrong. And I mean, as you grow up, you can't just be hypocritical, because sometimes in some situations, I'm sure I could have been wrong, and I'm sure I was wrong. And, that could have attributed to the way that things happen. But if I just have my family and friends like, no, Nat, no, he missed out anyway, because they know me. So of course they're gonna be on my side. But
Right.
I feel like if I would have gone and talked to somebody that was just neutral and just from the outside looking in, then I wouldn't have just said, okay, well, this relationship is over. Let me go find some things to keep my mind busy enough to just forget about the relationship, or just forget about that person, and push them all the way to the back of my mind. Because now it's like, okay, I've done that with 2-3 different situations with 2-3 different people, that I just tried to so hard to forget about them. And it's like, okay, but did you deal with the issues that, the traumas that came from being in that relationship, which one got physical. In that case, I definitely should have taken the time to go and talk to somebody about that. But I just figured, hey, I'll just get over it on my own. And thankfully, I'm a rational person and could see, okay, we were young, things happened, things got heated. I don't hate myself for it. I don't hate them for it either. But we were both to blame. But it also, obviously, it's never that serious. So if you do have the opportunity to talk to somebody about certain things, especially relationships, whether it's between you and your family, or whether it's between you and a partner, definitely do it, because you don't want to just keep resenting and just holding things in. Then one day you're just going to explode and let it out on the wrong person. Maybe backhand slap the wrong person, and it's like, oh no. Now I ain't even mean to do that, because my aggression was towards them. I ain't mean to bring that passion out on you, but it was just, might have been the person that was just there at the time.
But you're right,
Yeah.
Molly, because old wounds, I keep trying to tell people, old wounds, they just don't close like that. The old
Right.
wound can open back up. Once you scratch that wound again, it opens back up. So
And
it's
that's
like you have to really take the time and heal and do surgery on yourself by going to counseling to get everything that's toxic or anything that you have been through in that relationship out, because it's a lot, because you're going to compare every relationship to that bad relationship you had. And that's why I had to go to counseling, because I didn't want my next relationship to be like my previous relationship.
because you're still carrying on, you're still holding on to
Exactly.
trauma, and
Exactly.
trauma isn't always a physical injury. It can be an emotional injury as well. And
Exactly.
those linger, and they seem to heal a lot slower than the physical injuries that we
Yeah.
experience. So if you don't deal with the trauma, if you don't get through that and get a grip on the traumas that will then trigger you going forward, as you're trying to grow, and then you're wondering why you're kind of stuck in a cycle. It's because, well, you have this pile of trauma that you haven't dealt with. You haven't, you haven't addressed it head on. You haven't allowed for it to heal properly. You just kind of pushed it to the side and put it, stuck it in a box. And now here comes along something, and it, blows the top off of that box, and then boom, you're in a spiral, and you don't understand why. And it's because you haven't dealt with traumas that you experienced previously.
Yeah, that's so true, Brenna. And you never want to go in a spiral, because one thing about a spiral, you're going to end up just crashing and going down,
Ain't that the
you
truth?
know? And it's sometimes some people get up and some people don't get up. So it's always good to talk to somebody.
I have a couple of people that I know that have talked about their experience and, their non-belief in going to counseling and going to therapy, that they don't believe that it really works, and it's just psychobabble, and they're just trying to, talk you into something, and make you believe something else, and like change your beliefs. And I think too, that's another problem within our community is, everyone has in their mind like, oh, it's this psychobabble stuff. They're just going to make you, change your thinking and then change your mind. And it's like, I think that that's misleading. And that's another unfortunate stigma that, is a cloud that's hanging over and holding so many of us back from being able to seek the assistance that we so desperately need, is because of that backlash of, oh, you're going and you're talking to one of those people and they're feeding you that psychobabble. It's like, no, like once you start recognizing, and through therapy, you start realizing and being able to acknowledge your self-worth, and to be able to learn how to set healthy boundaries for yourself, and to not just be a yes person and not just be a people pleaser, and learn how to say no, like even in business, and we're in this entrepreneur mindset, like not all money is good money. You got to be able to differentiate, between these different things. And when you are all mixed up inside because you don't know what's what, and you're afraid of judgment, you're afraid of people thinking a certain way about you, and you fear seeking help because it's quote unquote psychobabble, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So that's definitely a stigma I would like to see start to disappear more and more, especially through our community, and to not be unsupportive if you have a family member or friend that is saying, hey, I think I'm going to, talk to somebody. And I think that's why a lot of us keep it to ourselves and don't really share. Oh, by the way, yeah, oh, I'm in therapy. Oh, you are? Oh, okay, good for you. Or I went to counseling 4 months ago. Oh, you did? I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't want to say anything because, of the negative backlash that's been known to be associated with that. So I think it's important, if there is someone that in your life, or several people in your life that have mentioned it or are mentioning that that's something that they're going to pursue, just be supportive. I mean, if that's the least that you can do, but it can definitely be most helpful, and start setting the tone for, this is a healthy thing to do. This is a good thing. This is definitely self-care, and making sure that your mental health is in a good place.
Yeah. And I was going to say, Brenna, for the people out there that don't feel comfortable talking to a counselor, just buy a journal, and every day write in that journal how you feel, what you're going through. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you overwhelmed? And do that self care, self love that we have always talked about. You know, to themselves until they feel comfortable enough to go to a counselor. Because you never want to keep it balled up inside because you don't want to explode one day. That's my only advice for the people that don't feel comfortable right now going to a counselor.
Yeah, journaling is definitely
Oh yeah,
is definitely very helpful
I love
and
journaling. That's just
Mm.
and
my thing. I wake up and
mhm.
journal, and I go to sleep and journal, and then I'll go on YouTube and put on my positive affirmations every night, and it just does something to you because it's like you're releasing all the bad energy that you had that day, and you're putting in positive, affirmations in your body, and you just feel new, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that is good. That helped me. I mean, just writing it out.
Oh yeah, Natalie.
Nobody had to read it. Hell, I didn't even read it after I was done. But once I wrote it down on
Natalie, I
paper,
have a
it's like,
whole box full of journals, and I don't read them.
really?
I just write in them, and after I'm done with my journal, I just put it in a box.
See, because I went back one day through my journal and I was like, I read one and I was like, oh my God, this is so sad. Like what? Like
Hmm.
what was I really going through?
Hmm.
What was I going through?
I
But
was
you can look
heartbroken.
back, Natalie, and say, "Well, I made it out of that situation fine."
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
compare like, ooh, damn,
Yeah.
I must have been down in the dumps.
Hmm. In the slumps.
Okay. That is so true too.
Yeah. Well, ladies, this has been a great conversation with you guys, and I hope we have brought awareness to mental health. And if anybody needs help or need guidance, please reach out to your local counselor, or like Natalie said before, I think here in Georgia, where is it at? Natalie, you
Geor-
said State?
Georgia State University.
Okay, look at Georgia State University if you're in
Yeah.
Georgia or in Atlanta. But we want everybody to feel comfortable getting the help that they need and not keeping everything locked up inside. So, ladies, if you don't have anything else to say or to discuss, we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I think I'll just piggyback on what you said. I mean, certainly there's resources that are out there and available. Don't be afraid to seek help. But if you're right on the cusp and you're not sure if counseling or therapy is for you, then definitely, grab a notebook, grab a book, grab a journal, start writing things down and start, giving yourself an outlet to get out some of those thoughts and maybe that might be the catalyst to help you sort through those things that you're struggling with. And I'll post a couple of links on the Facebook page and then on the
That'd be great.
Instagram page for Real Chill Conversations, some 800 numbers for people to seek assistance, and a couple of the Instagram pages that I was talking about. I'll post those pages in there as well so people can look at that for themselves and decide how they want to further seek assistance and stay on top of their mental health.
That would be great, Brenna.
Thank you.
Well, ladies, thank you once again for a wonderful conversation and another great episode. We appreciate everyone that took the time to come out and listen to us today. And we hope that you guys will join us next week, Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Okay.
Yep. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
All right, ladies.
Okay. Like,
Good night.
subscribe,
Good night.
comment.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.